everybody. I'm Catherine Rose, CEO and founder of WiseHer. We provide on-demand expert advice to help small businesses, entrepreneurs, and professionals accelerate their business or career growth. Our nearly 1,000 experts from around the globe provide small businesses, entrepreneurs, and career climbers with affordable one-on-one advice that helps them go farther faster in their business or career. And today, I'm so excited to be here on this Ask the Expert Live on our Get Wise Wednesday with my friend and WiseHer expert, Lori Richardson, talking about building a successful sales team and just catching up on all of her happenings because she's got a lot going on. Lori is an unconventional community builder and successful revenue growth strategist. She's been recognized as a top women in sales advocate and is a Salesforce.com top sales influencer in 2021. Her new book, She Sells, will be available in October. Hi, Lori.
Hey, Catherine. Great to see you.
It's great to see you, and it's great to have you here because I know you have a great deal of knowledge. Because one of the things we've talked about this before. It's like, I kind of liken building, when you build a startup or a business and people are like, I have the technical skills, or I'm a marketing person, or I'm a lawyer, or whatever it is, and I'll just hire a salesperson, right? And it's not as easy as that. And so I think this is a really, really important topic for a lot of folks. Let's talk a little bit about, this idea of kind of building a sales team from scratch.
Yeah. Well, it is true. I've always wondered, especially with entrepreneurs, founders who have this great idea and they start this company. I just wonder why they think that they could just hire somebody for sales, or some of them don't even really think about it. Smaller entrepreneurial mindset people that just want a solopreneur business, pretty much. They don't realize that they're the salesperson too. So it's been, many conversations, and I know you have too, and in the WiseHer network as well, talking with entrepreneurs and small business owners about, the fundamentals of sales. And I think one of the main things is that if you're building a company of substance, don't hire a sales leader before you hire someone who can actually do the selling. You need someone who can hit the ground running and who can work with a ever developing organization. Because if you're new, if you're a building company, you don't have it all figured out yet. Right. So you need someone that's super flexible, and you can't go and get someone from a bigger company that is used to having support people and all sorts of things. And they're going to have to be kind of flying by the seat of their pants in the beginning.
Yeah, because obviously, you don't necessarily know all of the objections you're going to raise and things. And I know we've talked about this before too, is where, even if you're not in your own mind, like the greatest salesperson, you have to be the salesperson in the beginning, right? Of your company.
Yeah, you have the vision. And if your vision is if it doesn't solve a problem for somebody or help people, if it isn't a must have, but it's a nice to have, I would encourage you to not do it. But if you have something that's a must have, there's an easy way to justify the investment. It's something that is needed, then it's upon you to do it. And it's upon you to find others that are excited. No one will ever be as excited as you are because you're, the charismatic founder. And so it takes, some doing. And I think that first sales hire is a really tough one.
I think so too. I mean, we're going through a growth spurt here at WiseHer, and it's the same thing. I've always been an individual contributor, right? I did sales management for a short period of time, but I really didn't love it as much as being an individual contributor. So talk a little bit about like that whole process. Like, where do you even start looking for good salespeople?
In the economy we're in right now, there are lots of openings. And so it might be a tougher time. You need to convey the value that you have, whether it's, extra flexibility or whatever the offering is that you're packaging, and maybe tie it in, in the case of WiseHer, it's such a helpful service to help companies and individuals that are up and coming themselves. It's very much it's a great thing to, when I've talked to people in Wiser, I feel good. Like I'm helping somebody out who wouldn't normally pay my normal speaking or coaching or consulting fee. So it's you're looking for someone that cares about that. In your case, and in other cases, you have to find what's really important, and really find people with drive, and find people with commitment, and a very can-do attitude, and someone who's really coachable, who can learn and as they go, and also kind of adjust as they go forward.
Well, I hear a lot too about this. When you're finding the right fit of any employee, but particularly of sales, a lot of folks think, well, I'll just hire someone on straight commission. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, then you don't have any skin in the game. So there has to be a point to where you're going to believe in them enough, in hopes that you made the right hire. And I would encourage using an assessment tool to do that, by the way, because
Okay.
we're all very bad judges of who's a good salesperson. I know that from experience as a manager. And even when I thought I was really experienced, I was never better than 50% right.
Wow.
So increase your odds by using a tool that can help you. And then, you have to have everything in place. This is a big thing I see with new companies. And I just went through this with an ex-client recently. We're not working together anymore because they just didn't have their stuff together. If you're bringing on new salespeople, where is the marketing? What is the web presence? What is the offer? What is their elevator pitch? All those things the salesperson shouldn't have to create
Right.
on their own. You need to create it for them. And then when you have a sales plan in place, and you have a process, and you have your identified markets, that's when you bring someone on. And it's simply to do the part that you don't want to do, which is get on the phone, send some LinkedIn requests, meet some people, talk to them about our offering. That's what they should be doing. That's all they should be doing. They should not be trying to figure out your marketing presence or who your market is. That's
Right.
what the company needs to do.
Well, I mean, I know you said I'm totally dating myself, but I know we, used to be that you would develop like a sales playbook, right? And I mean, because a lot of, a lot of early stage companies and small businesses, I mean, they don't have like big CRMs and these big plans. Maybe just something as simple as, our old time sales playbook. So talk a little bit about what that might look like.
Yeah, we have an employee play. It's really a manual, I guess. And then we also have a playbook for our sales people that are working with us. And it has the fundamentals about what our process is, and what the tools are that we use, who our market is, how we go about putting things into our CRM, which happens to be HubSpot that we use. And then how do we track marketing campaigns, and where do we get our leads from? And all those things are brought to the new rep, who simply has to bring their ability and initiative and drive and will to want to reach out and get something going, to the point that someone else can jump on a call. And then once they're more conversant about what the value is, they can see it through further, to the point where you and I have both been full cycle reps in the past, where we take it from the beginning to the end. But even having someone just, getting the leads going and following up and laying them up on a platter for us is really, really helpful.
Well, I mean, I think too, when you talk about straight commission, I mean, I was straight commission for a lot of my career, and I know I think you worked straight commission too for a bit, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I mean, they still had a playbook. They still had, because, you have to be able to close and get the money so you can live. Right. So it's not like, you can have a enterprise SaaS platform, and you can say to someone, hey, it's probably going to take you 3, 6, maybe even 12 months to close these deals, but I'll give you 50% at the end of the day. How are they going to eat? And
Yeah.
and
You
I
got to
think
have
too,
a salary. You
yeah,
have to have one at least for a period. I mean, I believe in general, with all the different companies we worked with over, let's say, the last 10 years, I believe it generally takes 6 months to ramp up.
okay.
And people know that they made a bad hire in 6 months. Sometimes they get the hunch in 3, but they really know it in 6, which is too bad because you've wasted a lot of time and money if it takes that long. So if it took 6 months, perhaps at 3 months you have a it goes down. Maybe there's a little less guarantee,
like a guarantee.
Yeah, exactly. And so that when you get to the 6-month mark, you're on your own 100%.
Got it.
Or, I mean, if that's the case, most people don't do a straight commission.
Right.
But if they did, that's how I would do it. And otherwise, having a smaller salary with good ramp up to on target earnings, it would be great, especially if it's uncapped, so that I can make as much as I want. You're not going to change the plan if I'm making too much, because if I'm making a lot, so are you, right?
Preach. I think that's one of my biggest, and we've talked about this many times too, like this, one of my biggest beefs with companies is that they want, the hardest part is to get that customer and to keep that customer, not just to get the customer, but to keep the customer, and growing the revenue and things like that. And they put these arbitrary caps. And so it's like, what's my incentive to go sell more? You know what I mean? This should be the happiest check you write is my commission.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's right. It can be a very hard job. It's also very rewarding.
Yeah.
And not everyone can do it, by the way.
No, it's not easy. And that's why I think it is too. It's like people think, again, I'll just hire someone to sell, but it sounds like if they don't have the right foundation, right? So especially early stage companies, if you're not sure of your product market fit, like how are you going to hire someone to evangelize it, right?
Yeah, and in the case of this client I worked with for a while, they thought that the salespeople would just be hired and know what to do, and that they didn't really need a manager. That they really could just be self-automated, because they're, it's like the money machine, right? They're being paid and then they're going to crank out stuff. And it was so, it's just so not like that. It was interesting to see it again. I kind of wish it had never happened. But
it's like a bad movie. You know how it's going to end, right?
So sad. And really talented salespeople that had to move on to another opportunity.
Well, yeah, because as a salesperson, nothing's more demotivating than not being able to close business, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned too was assessments. And I know that that's something that you do. What kinds of assessments are good tools, again, for like early stage companies, folks just starting out? What kinds of assessments can they use to evaluate potential sales hires?
Well, there's all sorts of interesting personality assessments out there to evaluate whether someone would be good on a team. So for team dynamics, but I've only run into one single tool, which we've turned into a process through Score More Sales, where it actually looks at 21 core sales competencies. And for managers, it looks at 20 core sales management competencies. And it benchmarks against more than 2 million people that have gone through it before. So it's not self judging, and it's very accurate. And they work with there's third party verification that it's accurate, and it's uncanny. In fact, I was telling you that I had a great morning before we went live. And one of the other things that happened today was that I talked to a sales leader where we had looked at his whole team a year ago. And then he put in some coaching and training and things and changed up some of the team members. And then we re-looked at it a year later, and it's way better. I mean, gentleman literally has his promotion cut out for him based on 2 slides that he could show last year and this year with phenomenal change. But it wasn't just a tool, but of course it was the coaching and the training and the accountability and all those other things that make sales work. But it's very rewarding to be able to see improvement, and that's hard sometimes.
Well, and I think that the fact that, these assessment tools exist and things, it's almost like pay now or pay later, right? So if you don't avail yourself of some of these assessment tools, then you could end up in 6 months with someone. And I kind of pick on them a little bit, the pipeline sellers. You and I have all been on sales calls where they would start off with, I got X number of millions of dollars in my pipeline, and it's like, well, it's the same story every week.
Right.
Every Monday we'd have a
big deal. It's a big
deal. Right. The big whales, like someone's, I'm going to bring them in. And, and I think that that's something else. I think that's why it's important for you to sell your own stuff, especially in the beginning, because you got to know how hard it is. How long does it take? Who are the right customers too, right?
Yeah. I remember when I sold technology, mostly computers back then, personal computers when they first came out. And there was a guy that sat next to me named Bob. I can't remember his last name. And he was a telephony guy, and he was selling this big deal. And he talked about it for a year, and then he never got the deal. So we don't want to be like Bob.
No, don't be like Bob. Yeah. Especially when you're, especially in the early stages. I mean, as a woman founder, trying to raise, it's hard, right? And you don't get as much. And so if you only have a little, you want to make sure you have you're getting the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak. When do you think, aside from the foundational pieces of it, so let's say, I've closed my first customer, and I have a process-ish in place, right? Because we're still early stages, and I have some, sales playbooks. When do you feel it would be a good idea for a company to start looking at hiring a sales resource?
At the point that you can't keep up with it.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to look at it, because whoever you bring on isn't going to do as well as you. You're obviously going to have to get him or her ramped up. But you'll get to a point where you just can't handle it. You just can't do it all. And I know for us, I got to a point where I can do some of it, but I can't do all of it. And I like to take initial conversations and then hand them off, because then I have a sense of the opportunity. I would encourage that to others who are building, because it wasn't long ago that we hired our first salesperson.
Okay.
So if I can have the initial conversation, I can qualify them, and I can get all the basic information, the understanding, and what it will take to bring it to closure. And then I can bring in, I don't hand off, because you hand off, it means they never talk to me again, but we'll do a joint call. And then this support person, who is a salesperson, will learn, we get all caught up, and then they will be the next follow-up person. And hopefully maybe we can bring it to closure on that second call. If not, then this is a person that's going to keep in touch with them. So I do it kind of like a junior support person, and that's been working well.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense, I think, because it's kind of a paradigm shift, though, because usually what companies do is they hire the BDRs, right? They hire the pounding the phones kind of people to bring the hunters, right? To bring the leads in, and then they pass them up. So what you're talking about, and I agree with you, honestly, especially if it's a newer, companies, pre-seed, whatever, there's no process in place yet, or there's no sort of record, right?
Even with one, it's and it's because I'm good at sales, you're good at sales. I actually learned this from Trish Bertuzzi. I don't know if you know her from the
I do. Yeah.
She's the best. Like, there's nobody better than her. She'll get on she'll call someone cold, and say, my name is Trish Bertuzzi from the Bridge Group. Have you heard of me? Because everybody, anybody who's anyone in SaaS probably has heard of Trish or the Bridge Group. So most of us wouldn't start a call that way. I know I wouldn't. I don't have I won't say, but
That's fine.
I don't have those. Yeah.
Pull the Yiddish out. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So it sounds to me though that I think that especially if the big overarching advice is be your own best salesperson, right?
Yes.
And then as you get going, and as you said, like as you've really identified those targets and the different decision makers in the process, bring on that support person so you're still that sort of first call. And because like you said, you hire someone, a salesperson cold, and you're like, oh, here, go make calls, and here's a script. It's like, what?
Yeah. We can't afford to lose out on opportunities like that. I don't think.
I agree. And that's where they get lost a lot of times, is that first conversation.
Yeah. If you get a ton of leads, maybe it's different. But, in a consulting, training, coaching world that we're in, we can't afford to, first of all, people have gone to your website and we don't even know the total of how many didn't follow through and reach out. Okay. So we lost everybody loses some people there that they just something doesn't grab them, and then they move on and talk to somebody else. When someone goes to our website though and leaves a message that they're interested, we call them immediately. Don't even wait an hour, and chances are probably 75% of the people that I reach right away, we end up closing, which is really great.
That's a fantastic point, is that you have to, and that's one of the reasons, maybe to even advocate for hiring some sort of sales support person, because if you and I are too busy running our companies and we can't, somebody has to get back to that person. And like you said, it's 70+% in the first hour, and then it kind of falls off the cliff after that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When you're building a sales team, I know a lot of people ask me this, and I'm sure they ask you this all the time too, is, this question of compensation. Like, I know it's sort of a loaded question, but maybe just give some framework about how to, we talked a little bit about straight commission, but just how do you look at compensating a salesperson?
Well, I've never been a comp expert, and I usually, pass on some of those conversations. But I would say that you can get a sense for what a role is in your, it used to be in your geography. That's kind of all gone out the window now with people working remotely. First of all, if you can have someone work remotely, that's huge. And you really want to promote that, because there are a lot of people who don't want to go back to offices. And some of the companies that are saying you have to come back to the office at some point, maybe it's January, but still, there are people that don't ever want to go back. And I would really take that to heart and really work to develop a remote role, and then, see what the range is. And you can look at, there are different online tools to do that. And, even looking at like Glassdoor and some other tools that you can see online, where you can see what reps are making and what different industries pay. I work with so many different industries that it's hard to say.
It's hard to kind of come up with a scale.
Yeah, but it's gone up. It's definitely gone up than what it was maybe even a year ago. And people are getting some really sweet deals these days that I know of. I've talked to reps that have had 4 offers out there, and they went with the one that they liked the best, and with the company that exhibited the traits of what they wanted to see. And they've had the opportunity to just cherry pick great opportunities.
That's, as a seller, that's fantastic to hear, actually.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about too is this idea of automation. So touch on that a little bit.
In terms of tools?
Yeah. Because so it's one of two, not arguments, one of two schools of thought is, I'll just hire a salesperson, or I'll just automate the whole thing.
Yeah, I see these LinkedIn tools, and I posted on LinkedIn recently about how, maybe you can call me old fashioned, but we look at our actual, leads that come in and comments that come in and messages that come in. I post myself. I post my own stuff. I don't pay other people to do it. And there are automated tools that will just crank through all your connections and send out messages. And I get these horrible messages. You probably do too, Catherine, where they don't even know that this is what I do. They're trying to sell me on what I do.
Yeah.
And why I
It's
should
like,
reach
oh,
out to them.
I see you're a coach. I'm like, no, I'm not a coach. No.
Yeah. And so, just don't do that. There's a place for bots. There's a place for automation. I like things like dialing tools that will record conversations, call coaching. There's some really great artificial intelligence technology that's out now, like Gong. Gong and Chorus are two of the bigger name companies in that space. And Exec Vision is another one. And there are just so many different tools that can support your efforts. What you want to do is minimize your search for leads. That time kills you.
Yeah.
And so there are, great tools like Zoom Info and others that Lead 411 is one that is a sponsor of one of our Women's Sales Pros events coming up. So I want to give them a shout out.
Yeah.
And there are just so many different tools that you can use to help support your efforts. But it really, this is what we bring as sellers, is that we bring empathy and we bring a sense of weighing an opportunity and figuring if it's, are there more questions we need to ask? Those are things that can't be done with artificial intelligence yet.
Right. Speaking of your upcoming events, I know that, for many years, how we got connected was that you're very passionate about getting more women into sales. So talk a little bit about that journey and what are the great things you have coming up.
Yeah. So I got into sales in my early 20s, and I was an only woman in a number of companies. But I actually had a great first experience where there were several women and a bunch of men, and we were all just kind of in it together. Everybody was excited and enthusiastic. But my next job, they had never hired a woman in field sales, which is what I was going to do in the channel. And so it was very tough to get on at that company. Once I got on, I didn't feel like I had their support. I had to prove myself. And fortunately, I closed a big deal within 90 days. And in the end, they ultimately didn't really support me just like I expected.
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving and going to the competition. But years later, when I'm working with all these companies, and it's mostly men in sales roles and sales leadership roles. And I literally walked into a room that I was going to do training in with 100 managers. I had never seen them all together in one place. And there were about 4 women.
Wow.
And so 90 some were men. And it just took my breath away. I mean, I just thought, this was 2015. And I thought, what has happened? Like nothing. Nothing's happened over the years.
Yeah.
Where are the women? And that's when I set out to do some research and really learn more about it. So that's really how Women's Sales Pros took off. And now we support all the women in sales organizations. There's about 10 or 12 of them. So we're going to have a big event on November 3rd where the women who lead these different organizations are each going to speak. And we have a website going up that will showcase all their organizations and all the podcasts that are hosted by women about sales and things that you don't normally see. We're really excited about that.
That's fantastic. I mean, the fact that, I'm always known you to be a collaborator, as you know, I am as well. And I think that's just a testament to your mission to get and support more women in sales professional roles that you've invited, all these different organizations to combine. And I know you do have a book coming out, so I definitely want to touch on that as well. So it's called She Sells. Is that the name of the book?
Yeah, that's the headline, is She Sells. And it's really to help managers, leaders, and company founders, the C-level, to hire and train and onboard and promote and retain more women on their sales team. It still happens that sales is One of those areas where women are underrepresented at every level. And it didn't help to have a pandemic, because a
Yeah.
lot of women were caregivers, or they, even without kids, they helped their parents out,
Yeah.
or they helped their community out. And so we lost some women. And to a large extent, there were a lot of women that left the workforce. We don't even really know how many were in sales.
Exactly.
But we know that it's a new day. And I believe that women will be able to lead remotely really well because of our empathy and our communication skills and the other things that we bring. So I'm hopeful that maybe that really low number about women who are VP sales and above, maybe that will change now with more virtual organizations, or companies that are partially virtual.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I live outside of Boston, and so just it was like 2 hours one way, into
Yeah.
work. Really, not only does it eat up your sales time, but it also eats up a lot of your free time in general. So now that there's more remote opportunities, hopefully that'll be a great environment for women. But I applaud that too. Obviously, is because we definitely need more women in sales roles, and making sure that leadership understands that, and fosters an environment that's welcoming
Yes.
is really, really important. But we're almost out of time, so I do want to just say thank you, obviously, for spending some time with me today, and just to kind of bring it all together, talk just a little bit about what we've maybe just bring in a couple of points, like maybe 3 to 5 tips. So when a new company, or even a small business, whatever it is really thinking about starting a sales team, just like 3 to 5 good tips that they could take with them.
Well, my best compensation tip is that you pay people for what you want them to do. And I know that sounds really simple, but make a clear list. If it's a salesperson, exactly what do you want them to do, like to the detail.
Okay.
And then compensate people in that way, and you won't have trouble.
Okay.
The other thing is that you're the number one salesperson. So until you hire somebody else to do it, you need to be honing your value proposition and bouncing it off others, and maybe doing a run through, practice on other people, get feedback, and look for your blind spots as a salesperson, and build a playbook so that you can bring someone in and lay it out to them, and make it very simple for them to either be able to pick up the phone or type something, and generate conversations that way. So make it easy for them to succeed in the beginning. Help them with leads that you have, kind of help them to get a quick win, because that's one of the best things that we can always, in any job that we have, it's always good to get quick wins. And just know that sales is an admirable profession, and it's a great career for someone to have. If someone is not sure what they want to do, and you have someone that maybe could help you to grow revenues, let them try it for 6 months or a year. And I bet that they'll learn skills for life, which is what I've always seen within sales roles.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. It's my favorite topics.
My favorite I love talking to you.
And, folks, please head over to wiseher.com, and we'll put the Lori's link into the chat, and you can schedule a time with her. She's amazing, as you have heard, and I know that she'd be really happy to help you. And if you want to stay on top of what we're up to on WiseHer, you can go to wiseher.com, or follow us along here on goasktheexpert.com, and you can get advance notice and some of the and advance notice on some of the new things that we have coming up. And also, when we have the replays posted, you can take a look at those as well. So thank you all for spending time with us. Thanks again, Lori, and until next time.